introduce guest of the chief guest of the evening, Mr. Dammu Ravi. He is Secretary Economic Relations in India's Ministry of External Affairs. He is India's Sherpa for BRICS, IPSA, I2, U2, and G7. Mr. Ravi handles mostly geo-economic issues for leveraging India's strategic objectives through India's development assistance to countries in the global south, partnership with Africa, multilateral economic relations, new and emerging strategic technologies. He is a great admirer of this region, Latin America region. In fact, I first met him when he was Joint Secretary for Latin America and Caribbean countries, and we traveled on a Vice President trip to Peru and Havana and many other places. Since then, his passion, his scholarship has made a lasting impression on me, and we've become good friends. He is a formidable, skilled trade negotiator. During his deputation to the Department of Commerce, he handled India's trade policy, World Trade Organization issues, and was a lead negotiator for the RCEP. As chief coordinator for COVID during lockdown, he coordinated disbursement of medicines and equipment and evacuation of Indians abroad through Vande Bharat flights. When not negotiating weighty diplomatic issues, Mr. Ravi writes book reviews and enjoys a good laugh. He has an excellent sense of humor, I can vouch for him. And now it's my pleasure to invite him. And sir, you may like to share your view of India's view of how do you see India's expectation with expansion of the grouping in particular, and what India hopes to achieve. And next year, by the way, after Rio, it is India's turn to take over the chairship. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manish, for this very generous introduction of me. But also like to congratulate the panelists, very distinguished panelists, Ambassador Kenneth, Ambassador Dennis Aleppo, Ambassador Kamal Jayad, Ambassador Krishnamurti, and the FICCI Secretary General, Jyoti Vij. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of very distinguished gathering here, and Ambassador Ronan Sen. I'm really honored by your presence, sir. He was my first ambassador in Mexico, from whom I learned a lot, my mentor, and amazing person, intellectual rigor, and continues to give his advice to wide range of people and colleagues in the service. Also Ambassador Fabian and Ambassador Manji Puri, Ambassador Ajit Kumar, and Sanjay Verma. And many friends that I see here, both in the media and the diplomatic circle. It's truly an honor and privilege to be here today. And to be talking on this very important subject at a time when Brazil is holding this summit, an important landmark in the BRICS calendar next month on 6th and 7th July. And from India, Honorable Prime Minister will be leading the delegation. Manish, I'd like to congratulate you on the 10th anniversary of your center. You have come a long way, I must say, and you made many friends along the way. And this is a clear reflection of your personal touch. And that's why, for the love and affection of you, so many have showed up. Congratulations on that. Let me come to the substance part of it. But I must claim at this at the outset, that I'm not an expert on BRICS at all. And so pardon my shortcomings if ever you notice them. Another remark I would like to leave before I move into the substance, but I congratulate Brazil for this extraordinary initiative. It's not easy. After G20, so many events across the country, and to hold another important event like the BRICS throughout the years, so many events, working groups, and dialogues. And then thereafter, you have a COP30 later in November. So it's a truly reflection of the extraordinary merit, the extraordinary skill, the diplomatic zeal that you all possess, and to your leadership. Congratulations, Ambassador Kenneth, for that. Friends, we are in setting the context for it. The BRICS has come a long way since it's been founded in 2009. It's been expanded from number 5 to 10 now, and then the partner countries. And many more countries have lined up to be its members. There's something that's come right in the BRICS grouping. Something that's attracting many countries around the world to be part of this important group. So we'll come to that a little later. But I think in the current times, in the geopolitical tensions and the conflicts, it's going through a very difficult time. Like all the plurilaterals and the multilateral groups, it's also going through a very difficult time. And we have to take note of the conflict zones, the geopolitical hotspots, both Ukraine, Russia, and the Middle East crisis, the Palestine issue. So 2 of its members are directly involved in any of this, Russia and Iran. And so that actually brings us to a very important deliberation and discussion within the BRICS family that tries to find consensus and convergence on how to manage these geopolitical tensions. I'm very confident that given the versatility of the members, keeping in view the peace and stability in mind, they will be able to find consensus and convergence, which will build into several deliberations thereafter. The character of the BRICS has changed in recent times. We are perhaps going through at a time political agenda is taking the center stage. What should have been actually the economic agenda. And that's a slight deviation we are saying, but I think it's most momentary. So we are also in these times a weakening of the multilateral institutions and what it means for plurilateral groups like BRICS. Because of the multilateral institutions are weakened, that debate and discourse has shifted out of the UN, which is why the G20 has become even more important for many countries in the world. But BRICS is not a competition to G20. We should understand the dynamics within BRICS are very different from G20. BRICS always brought in diversity, but that diversity is expanded with new members coming in and partner countries joining in. We have to recognize that it's not a competition, nor it is anti-West, as some people like to project it as to be. It's a group dynamics in the world that defines how it shapes up its narrative. And this is what is happening in the BRICS as well. Countries would like to amplify the voices, and they get into a group dynamics. And BRICS happens to be one of them. And because it is not linked with any conditions, underpinning the BRICS membership is even more attractive for countries to wanting to come in. And that's also the economic agenda is overwhelmingly of interest to many countries. Now, let me also underline here that competition is a reality in the global power politics. But cooperation amongst the countries is even more imperative for development. We have to recognize these 2 factors in the global context and how nations engage with each other. If you have to look at the promise and the perils of BRICS, and to be honest, there's a lot of potential, but there is a lot of several challenges too, and we have to recognize that. Let me look at the inclusive part of it, which is today's topic says shaping an inclusive and sustainable world order. Now, when you talk about inclusive world order, what comes to mind is actually large number of countries being part of that agenda. And if you have to take that further, the development becomes center stage of the debate. So today, with the multilateral institutions facing credibility crisis, the development agenda and the narrative is not able to come into the forefront. That's really the problem. But if you have to focus on development, then what comes to our mind is actually humanity. So the debate in the UN, the reform of the UN, there's a broad understanding that the reform is must because it has failed to live to the contemporary times' expectations. That's the reality. But the specificities of it, there is nuances and the differences within the BRICS member countries. I would like to put forth the idea that a country like India, representing 1/5 of the humanity, no matter which institution you talk about, has to find space, a place in it. And that is where, when you talk about the UN reforms and the UN Security Council membership, there can be no difference of opinion on that. Which is why I think many countries, when they talk about taking positions in the deliberations, either in BRICS and others, you tend to take national positions, which doesn't take into aspect the criticality of the development, inclusivity, and humanity. And that is missing in the deliberations here. Let's look at, from the inclusivity point of view and the development point of view, many countries today in the global south are unable to drive the agenda precisely because there is problem of funding of many of the projects, being able to take forth their own socio-economic programs because of what we understand the debt burden on them. Today in the developing world, the cumulative debt is over $11 trillion of the entire developing world. And the servicing of the debt for the developing world is 1.4 trillion per annum. It's a staggering number. And in the least developed countries, that is $40 billion a year. So imagine what it means to those countries' ability and capacities to be able to drive the basic necessities of their own people, particularly the health, education, sanitation, and livelihood issues like food. We have to understand the challenges of the global south and whether BRICS is able to find solutions in that. I'm very confident that BRICS has done enormous work addressing these issues. Both in the G20 agenda, it brought in poverty and hunger to the center stage of the debate, and now we see equally important is the agenda on tropical disease, health, and you have the global governance, AI, and it also brought in the climate change into the center stage of this agenda and debate. I know each chairship brings in something new, and every chairship builds it, the succeeding ones builds it, and then further improves it. So we have the chairship of Russia, there was a significant progress we've achieved. Brazil is built over it. And of course, next year when India takes over, there will be a much more momentum on all this. It's not that you give up on one and move on to another one. In the case of, if you look at most of the agenda items, there is some link to the SDGs as well, the Sustainable Development Goals. And unfortunately today, if you have to do a mapping of the progress, it's a very poor show. Not even 20% of the SDG achievements around the world. And we're just 5 years short of its inclusion, 2030. So it means something has gone wrong in the global community in addressing these challenges of the global south. So how do you find solutions? In my view, fundamentally, the solutions have to come from the global south itself. Now, although I would say the north-south paradigm is also important for development, but we have to drive the solutions ourselves. And that's where the relevance and importance of BRICS comes in. BRICS has a large number of countries, also a small number of countries. But if you put our act together and bring the energies and synergize them, it should be possible to find solutions for the global south. But that requires commitment, that requires a lot of hard work, and to be able to look deep into those issues into the future. Now, in the case of, let's say, tropical disease, which is a very relevant topic that Brazil has brought onto the agenda, post-COVID-19 has become such an important item, the healthcare. And we should be able to build over it further and find solutions. But again, the capacities of both the BRIC countries will be able to find, both in terms of research, exchanges, studies, and medicines and medical equipment. There is enough capacity in the BRICS countries to find solutions for that. In the climate change debate, again, SDG 13 and 7, energy transition, BRICS is building a bridge. Brazil is building a bridge from BRICS to COP30. This is a very, very dynamic way of understanding this. So all these deliberations will move into that. Climate finance is very important. Now, if you have to see a synergy between climate change, fighting climate change and energy transition, it should be possible to find a compatible approach, which is the green transition solutions that India has been able to put on the table, which is gigawatt scale of energy, renewable energy projects that India has successfully implemented can be replicated and customized to the countries in the global south. But that's food for thought. We should be able to look at these solutions. The businesses should come forward and the governments should be able to support it from behind. This debate on climate change and energy will be incomplete without bringing into the narrative the lifestyle for environment. And that's a very important item which we should never lose sight of. And I think next year when India takes over, this will become a very important topic to deliberate upon. Another item that I really liked is the global AI governance framework. I think in an unequal world that we are increasingly seeing around us, if you are not digitally literate and access to digital tools, that divide will become even wider. And this is a very dangerous trend in the global south. And that's what this agenda brings focus to. Where do you find the solution there? In my view, in some sense, in a very modest way, the digital public infrastructure agenda is a very important item, which India will wish to build in its chairship next year. These are local solutions and can be customized to the countries in the global south. We'll have to be more innovative. How do we come to that? Trade settlement in national currencies, often a very misunderstood concept and idea in the world. When you talk about trade settlement, usually the debate circulates around de-dollarization. But that's a highly mistaken understanding and a very presumptuous in that sense. In my view, it's not about de-dollarization. Countries are finding and trying to find alternatives for their own problems. Because the limitation of a hard currency in a country disempowers it to be able to trade and invest and trade with other countries. And that we have to recognize, that why countries would like to have an alternative currency is wanting to do trade settlement in national currencies. It's already happening in some sense. But we have to recognize that going forward, this is an important aspect that we need to build upon. BRICS currency, it's a tall order. It will take a lot of time because it requires harmonization of fiscal policies and monetary policies across the spectrum of the BRICS countries. That's work in progress perhaps, but I don't know how practical it would be because it's another ministry which is taking a lead on that. But till such time, I believe there is a great merit in encouraging trade settlement in national currencies, and more countries are able to do it, it's even better. Another important institution within the BRICS is the NDB, as Ambassador Kenneth has mentioned about, the New Development Bank. This is the biggest attraction for the member countries. And why? Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, the conditionalities are not there. There's no underpinning of, prescriptive doses that countries in the global south need to adhere to be able to tap into that potential. And this is where is an attraction. Today, the NDB has evolved even further. It is willing to lend funding in national currencies and help those countries to do projects in their own national currencies, not having to tap the hard currency from the market. I think there is a lot of merit in it, and we need to build further on that. Well, I've said a lot, but I think the distinguished panel will contribute even more on this. I don't want to take off all the ideas, but I just wanted to throw this idea and share with you. I think the important part of the entire BRICS, as I said at the beginning, is the economic agenda. And that should become a priority. And we should consciously drive this within the BRICS to make it relevant for the global south and to be able to find solutions for the problems of the global south. The economic agenda, and that's why I'm very happy that Vicky, Secretary General, is here today amongst us. The BRICS Women Alliance, Business Alliance, and the BRICS Business Forum, they are engaging. And that should, in my view, should intensify even further to look at collaborations, projects within the BRICS countries and in the global south. The last idea I wish to leave with you is, it's time if BRICS really want to play a significant mark, a role on the global stage, particularly in the global south, it should have a secretariat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dammu sir, for that overarching view. Very insightful for giving a preview into India's BRICS chairship, and especially the economic agenda. As they say, the business of diplomacy is increasingly business.